Nathaniel Blake stood motionless in his sleek Manhattan penthouse, staring out through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Below him, the city glowed with 1,000 lights, bustling with energy and purpose. Yet, amidst the grandeur of New York's skyline, Nathan felt empty, as if every glittering light below mocked the void in his heart. The empire he had built, complete with multi-million-dollar acquisitions, corporate takeovers, and an unending stream of accolades, now felt hollow, as if every success had chipped away a piece of his soul. His reflection stared back at him, impeccably dressed in a tailored Armani suit, his dark hair streaked with silver at the temples. It was the perfect image of a man who had everything. But Nathan knew better. A soft chime broke the silence. He glanced at his phone. A text from Charlotte, his girlfriend and the daughter of one of his largest investors. "Don't forget to be charming tonight. Dad's expecting you to network." Nathan sighed and set the phone down. Charlotte was beautiful, intelligent, and strategic, a perfect match for his business ambitions. Yet, she never made his heart race, never filled the quiet spaces in his life the way someone else had. Emma Harper. The name drifted unbidden into his mind, bringing with it a pang of regret. It had been years since he'd last seen her, years since he'd walked away from their love to pursue his career ambitions. She had begged him to stay, but he'd chosen power over love, convinced it was the right path. Shaking off the thought, Nathan turned to prepare for the evening ahead, a charity gala hosted by his company, Blake Enterprises. It was an event he usually dominated, commanding the room with practiced ease, but tonight he had a strange sense of foreboding, as if the universe was quietly rearranging itself. The ballroom at the St. Regis sparkled under crystal chandeliers, the soft hum of a piano filling the air. Nathaniel stepped into the charity gala with his usual air of confidence, but inside, he felt adrift. Events like these were his playground, calculated conversations, firm handshakes, and polite but empty smiles. It was where he thrived. Yet tonight, the atmosphere felt different. Nathan held a glass of red wine, his gaze wandering idly around the room. And then he saw her. Emma Harper stood across the room, deep in conversation with a group of executives. The chandelier's glow caught the soft brown waves of her hair, styled elegantly into a loose updo. Her midnight blue gown hugged her frame, exuding both confidence and grace. In that moment, the crowd faded and Nathan's world narrowed to just her. His breath hitched, a wave of longing and regret crashing over him, as if time itself had stopped just to punish him for what he'd lost. She turned, her eyes meeting his. A flicker of surprise crossed her face before she composed herself, her expression cool and unreadable. Nathan began moving toward her, drawn as if by some magnetic force. But before he could reach her, a small boy darted out from behind her, clutching at her hand. "Mom, I'm sorry, I spilled juice on the table," he said, with a guilty look. Nathan froze. The boy had Emma's soft brown hair, but his eyes? They were unmistakably Nathan's. His heart pounded as he stared at the child, his breath catching in his throat. "Leo," Emma said gently, bending down to wipe the boy's sticky hands. "Say hello to the gentleman." The boy turned to Nathan, his wide, innocent eyes meeting his. "Hi, sir," he said politely, before tugging at Emma's hand again, oblivious to the tension thickening the air between the adults. Nathan's gaze shifted from the boy to Emma, his mind racing. "He's your son?" His voice came out strained. Emma straightened, her posture steely. "Yes, this is Leo, and yes, he's your son." The words hit Nathan like a thunderclap. He looked at Leo, then back at Emma, a wave of regret and anguish surging through him. "Emma, why didn't you tell me?" he whispered. Her hand tightened around Leo's, her eyes blazing with a strength he'd never seen before. "Because you chose to leave us. You didn't just leave me, Nathan. You left the life we could have built together, and I chose to live without you, even when it broke me." Nathan couldn't take his eyes off Leo. The boy's eyes were identical to his, those same eyes he'd seen in the mirror countless times. His mind raced with questions. How had he not known? How could Emma have kept this from him for so long? "Emma, you owe me an explanation," he said, trying to keep his voice calm despite the storm raging inside him. Emma knelt down, brushing her fingers through Leo's hair. "Sweetheart, I think it's time for us to head home." "But Mom, I want to see more dinosaurs," Leo protested, his small voice tugging at Nathan's heartstrings. "Leo, listen to me," Emma said gently but firmly. She took his hand, then turned back to Nathan. "I don't owe you anything. You left, Nathan, and I did what I had to do to build a life for myself and my son." Nathan stepped forward, his voice rising slightly. "I didn't know. If I had known you were pregnant, everything would have been different." Emma turned sharply, her eyes blazing with both pain and anger. "Different? Do you really think that if I had told you back then, you would have given up everything you were chasing? I watched you choose power over love, Nathan. If you wouldn't choose me, why would you have chosen him?" Nathan had no answer. She was right. 3 years ago, he had walked away from her, convinced that love was a distraction from his goals. But now, looking at Leo, everything he thought he believed in felt like a lie. Emma started to walk away, Leo's small hand in hers. But before they disappeared into the crowd, Leo turned back and waved at Nathan. "Bye, sir," he said with a bright, innocent smile, unaware of the heartbreak unfolding around him. Nathan stood frozen, watching them until they were out of sight, regret tightening like a vice around his chest. He had lost Emma, and now he feared he might lose the chance to be a father as well. Nathaniel couldn't sleep that night. The quiet of his penthouse only amplified the chaos in his mind. The city lights reflected off the glass windows, but they couldn't illuminate the storm raging in his heart. Images of Leo, the boy with his own eyes, and the hurt look on Emma's face played on an endless loop in his mind. Grabbing his phone, he began searching for everything he could find about Emma. Over the past 3 years, she had not only raised Leo, but had also become the CEO of a cutting-edge tech company specializing in sustainable energy. Emma hadn't just survived after he left, she had thrived, building a life that no longer included him. Nathan knew he couldn't change the past, but he resolved to do whatever it took to make things right. He decided to start small, with a gift. 2 days later, a small package arrived at Emma's door. Leo tore into it with excitement, pulling out a meticulously crafted toy dinosaur and a beautifully illustrated book about prehistoric creatures. "Mom, look at this! I've never seen a dinosaur this cool!" he exclaimed, clutching the toy to his chest. Emma picked up the note that came with it, the handwriting unmistakably Nathan's. "For Leo, I heard you love dinosaurs. I hope this little guy will be a good friend to you. I'm sorry I've missed so much of your life, but I'd like to start making it up to you. Nathan." Emma frowned, her emotions conflicted. What was he trying to do? But when she saw the pure joy on Leo's face, her heart softened just a little. The next day, Nathan appeared at Leo's school at pickup time. He didn't go inside but waited by the gates, watching for Emma and Leo. When they emerged, Emma's eyes were wary as she spotted him. "I want to see Leo," Nathan said, his voice earnest. "I just want to get to know my son. Please, Emma." Emma's expression hardened. "Why now? After all these years, why do you care?" Nathan took a deep breath. "Because I was wrong. I gave up the things that mattered most, and I don't want to lose anything else." Emma stared at him, searching for any hint of insincerity, but all she saw was regret. After a long pause, she turned to Leo. "Leo, would you like to get some ice cream with Mr. Nathan?" Leo's face lit up. "Yes, I want to tell him all about my new dinosaur." Emma sighed, unsure where this would lead, but for the first time, she decided to give Nathan a chance. Nathan sat at a small ice cream parlor near the school, listening intently as Leo enthusiastically explained every dinosaur in the book Nathan had given him. The boy's hands flailed wildly as he spoke, almost sending his chocolate ice cream flying. Nathan laughed, a sound that felt strange and yet deeply genuine. It had been far too long since he'd experienced this kind of joy. "Did you know?" Leo asked, his eyes sparkling. "I like dinosaurs because they're smart and strong, but I also like birds because they're like little dinosaurs." "That's amazing," Nathan said, truly impressed by the boy's curiosity. "So, which one is your favorite?" "Therizinosaurus," Leo exclaimed without hesitation. It had the longest claws of any dinosaur, but it didn't use them to fight. It used them to pick plants. Nathan smiled, completely captivated by Leo's enthusiasm. Every minute he spent with the boy felt like another step toward understanding his son. a connection he hadn't thought possible just days ago. Emma sat quietly beside them, observing the scene. She couldn't deny that Nathan was trying, but more importantly, he wasn't just pretending, he was genuinely interested in what Leo had to say. After the ice cream, Nathan hesitated before asking, "Would it be all right if I took you and Leo to the dinosaur museum? They have a new exhibit that I think he'd love." Emma hesitated, but the hopeful look in Leo's eyes melted her resolve. "All right, but remember, this is for Leo." That weekend, they visited the museum together. Nathan held Leo's hand as the boy eagerly darted from one dinosaur skeleton to another. Emma followed behind, feeling a strange sense of comfort watching the two of them interact. "Dad, look at this," Leo suddenly shouted, calling Nathan Dad for the first time. Nathan froze, his heart overwhelmed by the moment. He knelt beside Leo, trying to blink away the tears that threatened to fall. Emma stood at a distance, feeling a tug in her chest. Nathan wasn't just trying to fix his mistakes, he was genuinely working to become a part of their son's life. An autumn afternoon bathed Central Park in golden hues. Leo dashed through the fallen leaves, gleefully scooping them up and tossing them into the air, his laughter ringing out like a melody. Nathan and Emma walked side by side, keeping a measured distance, though their occasional glances toward each other spoke volumes. "Leo has so much energy," Nathan said, breaking the silence with a small chuckle. Emma smiled softly. "He takes after me when I was little, always curious, always exploring." Nathan looked at her, his expression wistful. "I remember you being that way too." His voice was gentle, carrying a note of regret that Emma couldn't ignore. Emma stayed quiet for a moment before asking, "Nathan, do you ever think about what you did, about leaving me?" "You're asking if I regret it?" Nathan sighed, his gaze turning distant. "Every day, Emma. I tried convincing myself it was the right decision, but looking back, all I see is a void I'll never be able to fill." Emma didn't reply immediately. They walked in silence, the crunch of leaves underfoot filling the space between them. Finally, she said, "I was so angry at you, not just for leaving, but for not believing that we could face everything together." Nathan stopped walking and turned to face her. "I was wrong, Emma. I was so blinded by my ambitions that I didn't see that you were the most important thing in my life. And now, I want to make things right. Not just with you, but with Leo too." Emma's eyes softened, but there was still a trace of caution. "Nathan, words aren't enough. You know that, don't you?" He nodded, his gaze earnest. "I know, and I don't expect you to forgive me right away. But I'll do whatever it takes to prove that I've changed." "Mom! Dad! Look at this!" Leo's voice rang out, interrupting the moment. He held up a massive golden leaf he'd found, grinning ear to ear. "I found the biggest leaf ever!" Emma laughed, kneeling beside her son. "That is the best leaf I've ever seen, Leo." Nathan stood quietly, watching mother and son with a warmth spreading through his chest, a feeling he hadn't experienced in years. Nathaniel stepped into the sleek boardroom of his company on Monday morning, facing the full weight of the executive team. Outside, the early sunlight streamed through the windows, but inside, the atmosphere was heavy with tension. Judgmental eyes bore into him, and Nathan knew exactly why they were unhappy. "Mr. Blake," one board member began, his tone icy, "we've heard about your recent decisions, including canceling the Peterson merger. It seems like you're letting personal emotions interfere with the company's direction." Nathan stood tall, meeting their gaze without flinching. "I understand your concerns," he started, his voice steady. "But let me make one thing clear. This company has been the center of my life for too long. I've sacrificed everything for it, including the people I care about most." The room fell silent. His words carried more weight than any defense he could have offered. "Recently, I've come to realize that power and success mean nothing if it comes at the expense of family, love, and true happiness. That's why I've decided to focus on what truly matters in my life. Effective immediately, I'm stepping down as CEO and entrusting this company to the management team I believe in." Stunned expressions filled the room. One person tried to object, but Nathan simply smiled. He had already made up his mind. That evening, Nathan arrived at Emma's house, holding a bouquet of flowers and a small gift for Leo. She opened the door, her eyes widening in surprise at the sight of him, dressed casually, without the imposing suit he usually wore. "What are you doing here?" Emma asked, her tone cautious. Nathan took a deep breath. "I wanted to tell you that I resigned from my position as CEO." Emma frowned. "Why would you do that?" "Because I realized that power doesn't mean anything if I have no one to share it with," Nathan said, his voice soft but firm. "I want another chance. Not just to be Leo's father, but to love you again, Emma." Emma stood silently, her eyes brimming with emotion. But before she could respond, Leo came running from behind her, throwing his arms around Nathan. "Dad, you came to see my dinosaur collection, right?" Nathan laughed, kneeling to hug his son tightly. "That's right, buddy, and I didn't just come to see dinosaurs. I came to stay." 3 months later, Nathaniel, Emma, and Leo strolled through a quiet winter afternoon in Central Park. Snow blanketed the paths and bare trees, creating a picture-perfect scene. Leo ran ahead, leaving tiny footprints in the fresh snow, clutching a rock he'd just picked up, his eyes shining as they always did when he found something exciting. Nathan and Emma walked side by side behind him, one of his hands holding hers, the other carrying a cup of hot coffee. It was a simple afternoon, yet it held immense meaning. "I didn't think I could ever feel this happy again," Nathan said, breaking the comfortable silence. "But I know now that happiness isn't something you find. It's something you fight for." Emma smiled, her eyes glimmering under the soft winter light. "And you've fought for it, Nathan. That's why I believe in you now." Nathan stopped walking, gently turning her to face him. "And I'll keep proving it, every day. Emma, you and Leo are everything to me. There's nothing I want more than to be part of your lives." Emma looked into his eyes, searching for any trace of doubt. What she found was a changed man, not the ambitious, detached Nathan she had once known, but a devoted father and a man who had learned what it truly meant to love. "I believe you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Leo suddenly turned back, running toward them with a wide grin. "Mom, Dad, look at this. I think it's a real fossil." Nathan chuckled, crouching down beside Leo. "Well, we'll have to check that out right away. But first, how about some hot chocolate?" "Yes, please," Leo exclaimed, grabbing both his parents' hands and pulling them toward their favorite cafe, a cozy spot they often visited as a family. Inside the warm cafe, surrounded by the scent of chocolate and the glow of twinkling lights, Nathan watched Leo animatedly talk about dinosaurs while Emma laughed, her cheeks flushed from the cold. It wasn't a grand moment. There were no spotlights, no applause. But it was everything Nathan had ever wanted. As snow continued to fall outside the window, Nathan realized that love wasn't something static. It was something that grew, that evolved. And sometimes, the things we think are lost forever can become a new beginning if we're brave enough to change.